The fact is that today it became known about another successful special operation by the security service of Ukraine. The web is indeed being spun around the Kremlin, around Putin, and it's turning out badly for him, but very well for us. Because it was announced that the Crimean Bridge was blown up. And what is interesting about this explosion? What is it that makes this particular blast so interesting? The point is that we might be talking about the use of a deep water submarine, an autonomous drone called Marichka, which actually managed to cover a significant distance, apparently bypassing barriers and restrictions set up by the occupiers, the Russians, and reaching the support pillar. What is the most valuable part of a bridge? Of course, it's the supports that hold it up, especially when we're talking about supports that go along the bottom. So this is very successful. And just imagine that during the occupation, Russia has created a lot of deterrent and protective elements. These include boom barriers, combat dolphins that the enemy uses, as well as aviation. There are also countermeasures against surface drones, countermeasures against aerial drones, air defense systems, and surveillance systems and equipment. And the underwater drone managed to bypass all of this. So what could this mean? It means that Ukraine has achieved another technological breakthrough. After all, it's easy to imagine how can this be countered? Only by deploying some kind of submarines. But deploying submarines in shallow waters, for example, in the Kerch Strait, is quite difficult and complicated. We understand that they would have to remain mostly on the surface. For large submarines, that's a problem. So it can be assumed that now Ukraine can reach and attack, for example, even Russian military submarines based in Novorossiysk or in unrecognized Abkhazia. It's entirely possible. Can we assume that such an attack could take place? Yes, absolutely. And it is indeed a fact that such an attack could happen. And now, as a result, submarines are indeed currently under threat. That's what this is about. What else does an attack on the Kerch Bridge mean right now? The point is that, yes, indeed, if we look, a significant amount of cargo, specifically military transport, is not being moved. This is even according to data from the Security Service of Ukraine, which was published, say, half a year ago and so on. Last year, what was the reasoning for why strikes on the Crimean Bridge were not being carried out? However, we need to understand that despite the fact that the enemy is building bypass routes, railways and roads along the occupied south, for example, the occupied parts of Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia regions, and the left bank of Kherson, where they move their cargo and maintain logistics, transporting ammunition and personnel. In addition, as long as they have an alternative and as long as the Crimean Bridge exists, the enemy can continue to use it. That is, as long as they have the opportunity, why wouldn't they take advantage of it? Therefore, it is quite likely that the occupiers can actually use this route to transport cargo. And that means, as long as it exists, it will pose certain threats, regardless of whether large shipments are being moved right now or not. Secondly, this attack is also perhaps even more symbolic, but it is very important. What does it indicate? It indicates the growing capabilities of the Ukrainian defense industrial complex and our special services, our intelligence, our counterintelligence, our defense forces of Ukraine, who are able to reach, who have various means to, in fact, strike the enemy at, let's say, long distances. So in principle, we have to say that in this way, our capabilities are only increasing. Therefore, in fact, this is another reason that can be mentioned, that can be discussed, and that truly matters. That is, in fact, capabilities and possibilities play an important key role here. In addition, what else needs to be stated and mentioned is, what is the symbolism here? The symbolism lies in the fact that if we demonstrate our capabilities and possibilities, it means we have a long reach. Our long reach is our capabilities, which we show to the enemy and to the world. Right now, it is very important to show the whole world that we have cards to play. When we are told that we have no cards, we say, no, look, these cards exist, they are available right now, and they are being used by our defense and security forces. In addition, I would like to say that obviously we are entering a certain period when there will be a spring-summer campaign or a summer-autumn campaign, not only by Russian troops, but in fact also by the defense forces of Ukraine. And obviously this campaign will mean and involve precisely such strikes deep into Russian territory against their rear, as well as the execution of a number of special operations on the occupied territories and on enemy territory. In addition, many Russian public channels and war correspondents are now starting to sound the alarm, claiming that the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine might also be preparing a certain operation. This operation could be carried out in the rear and might even involve an airborne landing in occupied Crimea. Well, that's what the enemy is saying. I'm simply relaying what they are writing. They claim to have some information suggesting that this could be happening. Is that true or not? I think we'll see in the near future, but I admit that we are likely to see a number of such actions in the near future, both in the enemy's rear and in the occupied territories. And when we talk about the summer campaign in the fall, we also need to understand that there must be elements that motivate the Ukrainian people, that motivate our forces. And we can talk in the context of the front. If at the front we are currently unable to carry out significant counterattacks, large-scale ones. Accordingly, we can say that we are able to do this in the rear, in the occupied territories, and deeper into Russian territory. In other words, this is our advantage. And of course, we need to make use of it. And this is exactly what the summer campaign could look like. You can see that drones are attacking. They attack from the air, attack on land, and will attack at sea and, as is already known, underwater as well. That is, Ukraine is using all elements and means, forces, capabilities, and capacities to wage an asymmetric war. This is exactly how it should be. I have said repeatedly that we do not have that many cards to play right now, because the enemy still has an advantage in manpower and in some places on the front line. And such opportunities for attacks in the rear are something we can and must use to the fullest. So I sincerely believe and hope that there is more to come. Friends, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet. Don't forget to leave your comments, likes, and to recommend this channel to your relatives, family, friends, and acquaintances. I would be incredibly grateful. Let our community keep growing. And remember, no matter what, with confidence and God's help, we look and move only forward. Take care of yourselves, and glory to Ukraine.